Today, many of us are lucky to get our water from a faucet, giving us instant access to the most important resource on Earth. But back in the day, many people had to go get their water from a river, a well, or a cistern. And in 1960, when the Craig family would open their cistern, they would be met with a frightening intruder with a bizarre appearance. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series All Things Cryptids, and today we're going to look into the Randolph County Cistern Creeper. Aw man. Today's topic takes us to the Craig family farm, which is just south of the town of Lynn in Randolph County, Indiana. On the property, the family had a cistern, which, unlike a well that taps into a subterranean water source, would collect water from external sources, mainly from rainwater. The family wouldn't use the cistern much at all, but sometime in 1959, they would begin to hear sounds coming from it, and Dan Craig would even notice movement inside upon opening it, causing them to just stop using it altogether. In May of 1960, Mrs. Craig would eventually go down to the cistern to gather water to wash some laundry, but as she peered inside, she noticed an unusual intruder. The creature, which was resting on a board, was described as a mushroom shaped, light gray creature the size of a kitchen saucer, with what appeared to be appendages that dangled into the water. Once Dan got back from work, his wife would tell him about the monster and demand that the cistern be drained, cleaned, and refilled with fresh water. Although Dan wasn't convinced that something was living down there, although eventually he would come face to face with the cistern creeper himself. He would describe it as having a dome shaped head with large eyes and 8 tentacles as long as human arms that ended in pincers. On June 1st, 1960, Dan would be talking about the monster at a local truck stop that he would hang out at, with the owner of the spot overhearing the story, and out of concern that some poor creature might be trapped in a cold, dark cistern, he would contact a game warden. That day, Officer Kenneth Yost would arrive at the farm with a party of men ready to investigate the cistern. But all they would recover was trash, and no sign of a monster inside. At this point, the monster had become the talk of the town, with local newspapers covering the odd account, and locals would apparently start walking up to the cistern to see for themselves, sometimes even trying to fish it out. One farmer alleged to have lowered a fish into the cistern tied to a string, with it being cut to ribbons, as it said. The farmer would later feed the remains of this fish to his cat, but 15 minutes later, the cat would die. Eventually, the cistern would be drained of most of its water, and a young boy named Craig Lee would bravely descend into the cistern to investigate, where he would come face to face with the creeper, describing it as a grayish yellow mushroom shaped creature with eyes atop its head and 10 tentacles with pincers at each end. Craig had reportedly found a hole at the bottom of the cistern as well, which he believes could have led to a cave system, leading many to wonder just what had haunted this extremely neglected cistern. So, just what is the cistern creeper of Randolph County? Did somebody throw a seafood boil in here and forget to boil it? The mention of a hole in the cistern is pretty interesting, as usually cisterns are watertight containers that are closed off. But this cistern was clearly neglected given all of the trash inside. And it would make sense if it was connected to a cave system, because obviously creepers are going to spawn in if the former owners didn't properly light up the cave with torches. Seriously though, Dan Craig personally theorized that the creature could have been brought up there by the former owners, who brought it from the tropics. But if this creature was from the tropics, I'm pretty confident it wouldn't last long due to a lack of food, one, all the trash floating around in there too, and most obviously the lack of salt water. Given the description of the creeper, it almost perfectly matches an octopus apart from those pinchers, But after a little research, I found out that octopi have been found with branching and forked limbs, usually due to rare conditions or the tentacles recovering from an injury. Octopi also have mastery of the art of mimicry, being able to change their shapes, skin texture, and even their color, which can explain the slight differences in the sightings. But with all this being said, octopi and all other cephalopods, to our knowledge, are incapable of surviving in freshwater. This mainly comes down to their cells requiring saltwater ratios equal to the water around them. And if the water doesn't have enough salt, then they cannot maintain the ratio, and the cephalopod in turn would die. And across the 400 million years of known cephalopod history, we have yet to discover a freshwater cephalopod, with the closest known cephalopod being the very fittingly named brief squid, which can tolerate brackish water, but only briefly, get it? But with that being said, there have been reports of freshwater cephalopods, but hey, that's a video for another day. Given the pinchers, perhaps the creeper could have been a crustacean, or even a eurypterid, an ancient order of arthropods referred to as sea scorpions that ruled the oceans hundreds of millions of years ago, and were capable of reaching giant sizes. And crustaceans themselves are capable of getting quite large, with the Tasmanian giant freshwater crayfish, the largest freshwater crustacean in the world, reaching lengths of 2.5 feet long with ginormous claws. But my largest problem with these theories is that this empty cistern would provide no food for such a large crustacean, or surviving eurypterid that somehow wound up in this cistern for that matter. So, just what was the cistern creeper? Well, to find the answer for that, we can look no further than Mr. Yost's second visit at the farm, which was on the night of Tuesday, June 7th at 10:30 p.m., which is pretty late. And this time, when he went down into the now drained cistern, he would come up with a light gray ball and part of a garden hose, which immediately convinced the Craigs, or at least Mrs. Craig, who the next morning said that there was no doubt that what she had witnessed and heard was just debris in a filthy cistern. And on that note, the hole that Dan mentioned, well, the thing is, Yost couldn't find any other openings aside from the two drains that were in there that were covered up by sewer grates. So the hole down there was also either misseen, it could have been a leaf on the wall, or it was entirely made up as well. And so, the Randolph County cistern creeper was nothing more than trash moving around in an unusually dirty cistern. The case of the creeper is an example of how an active imagination can turn anything in the dark into a spooky monster, and when combined with yarn spinning clever locals, legends can be born from the silliest of things, turning a moldy ball and part of a garden hose into an octopus with toxic pinchers. And even though the story of the creeper ends in a pretty lame way from a cryptozoological standpoint, the Craig family had a happy ending, with media pulling away from the story, the relief of no monster living in their cistern, and best of all, that nasty cistern was being cleaned out and the dirty water inside was being replaced with fresh, clean water. And I mean, I'm surprised that they even used that thing to begin with. I mean, it had like jars and planks and all sorts of other dirty stuff down there. Like, it just seems like the former owners treated it just like a dump. Like, they were renovating the place and they just dumped all the stuff down there. That's my theory as to why it's so dirty, but damn. And that's going to do it for the Randolph County Cistern Creeper. This was a pretty interesting and a pretty funny story. It just goes to show that like odd stuff in a low visibility area could really make you see just about anything. I mean, they were seeing like some weird octopus creature down there when really it was just a bunch of trash, and this thing was just nasty. I mean, personally, the game warden pulling up like boards and stuff like that, I would just clean that out or nuke it. I don't know. But What did y'all think about the creeper? Do you think that the game warden was covering up the fact that there was a cave system down there that led to a utopia filled with these weird octopus alien dudes? Or, I mean, I don't know, did you just find this really silly? Let me know what you thought about this odd case down in the comments below. I always love seeing what y'all have to say about it, and if you have any recommendations, feel free to leave them, as the creepy season still does have a couple more installments due. Let's see, how many do we have? We got plenty left. We got, we got 3 more left after this, and the Halloween special is going to be a good one, I can tell you that. But I'm not going to keep you much longer. Again, I would like to thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like. And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell for whenever an upload goes out. The Randolph County Cistern Creeper, that got me a couple times, may not be a real creature, but you don't know when a real creature is going to be uploaded, and you want to be notified the second that it's out there so that you can look out your window and see it just in time. But also, if you truly are a real one, and if you really like this content, you can become a member. Becoming a member for just $3 a month gives you early access to these videos. You get to be right here in the member shout out section, right here with the beluga and all the great foods. They're very tasty. And of course, you get priority recommendations on your recommendations in the comments. But if you don't want to, it's perfectly fine. You're a real one regardless, especially if you made it this far in the video. But for the last time, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. And make sure to clean out your cellar.